And hello everybody, welcome back to the video. Today we are back inside of Minecraft and we're playing from Summer to Winter 1. We played the second version of this map previously, but now we're going to go through and play the first one. From what the comments were saying, it actually sounds like this one's probably harder than the second one, so I'm looking forward to that. Harder parkour is almost always more fun. Well, no, not almost always, but sometimes it's more fun. Whoops. So yeah. Like, I remember the second map being pretty easy and fairly quick, and I keep turning too stinking soon. Okay. This is awkward, considering the fact I got this on my first... Okay. It's fine. It's fine. There we go. Back onwards. Yeah, like, the second map was a bit on the easy side, for sure. So I am looking forward to hopefully having a bit more of a challenge. Bam. Woo, there we go. Tough jumps. I mean, not super tough jumps, but they're there. I'm really contradicting myself every couple seconds here, aren't I? That's fine. Come on. Yeah, there's like kind of like the first one, lots of like trees and stuff like that involved, and fences. Just kind of in general a lot of I don't know, just weird jumps, I guess. All the fence jumps and having to jump around in trees. Boom. Like, I actually kind of like the concept of the maps. Like, I get from summer to winter seems a bit strange or whatever, but I actually kind of like that concept. Kind of like as you're parkouring, you're progressing through to further place. This bring me back to the first level. Do I have to like skip the checkpoints to get to new ones? No, this is a different level, right? Yeah, this is definitely a different level. They all look really similar, so it can be a little bit hard to tell. Boom. Okay. Simple enough. I was saying this was going to be a bit more difficult, but so far it's actually been really easy. I don't know if that's just, hey, it's the first couple levels it's going to pick up in difficulty. It could also be that the difficulty was just overhyped by the people in the comments. Always possible. Actually, really common, frankly, now that I think about it. I mean, part of that's just, there's a lot of variations between how good people are at parkour, so as a result, it's not uncommon to have people think that a map that's not all that difficult is really hard. Boom. Okay, cool. I will say, one thing that I think's a bit, like, dumb in parkour is, like, people that always are very quick to judge the difficulty of a map without having ever played it. Like, there's been times that I've had people, comment on a map like, I haven't really played it, but that map looks really easy and that sort of thing. And I'm always just like, wait. So you haven't played it, but you're telling me that the map's easy and I should have done better than I did. What? Like, to some degree it makes sense. Like, if it's a very clearly easy level with a lot of really short jumps. But, like, kind of it's a general rule. If you haven't tried it, then making a judgment on difficulty is a bit weird. It's the same reason why, like, when conversations start, like, people talking about which FPS games harder to learn and stuff like that. It's like it's very rare that it'll ever work out in a productive conversation because most of the time somebody that's making a judgment for one game hasn't played the other game nearly as extensively, right? Like somebody that's played mostly Valorant can't, like would most likely say, getting to a high level in Valorant is more difficult than in Siege, whereas somebody that's played a lot of Siege would say, Siege is a little more difficult. So it's like anybody making a judgment on things that they haven't actually done is always, a bit strange and rarely works out well. And like there's some exceptions. Like there's some things that is like easier to make a judgment on before you try it. And like part of the deal is this is something that people don't mention a lot when they talk about this sort of stuff, is it is necessary very frequently to make judgments on stuff that you've never tried, make spur of the moment judgments all the time, right? Like even with like movies and stuff, for example, like you always hear that you can't make a judgment on a movie before you watch it. Like technically you can make a judgment. Like, you read the synopsis and, a lot of times you do that to try and decide whether or not you think the movie's good enough to watch. And like in the case of a parkour map, you'll look at the parkour map and stuff and try to make a judgment on whether or not it's worth playing and all that stuff. So like, all the time you have to make judgments on stuff that you've never tried and don't know all that much about. So I guess more what I'm meaning here is I think it's less of you shouldn't make judgments on stuff that you haven't done yet, as much as you shouldn't make judgments on how other people handled stuff that you haven't done before. Like, it's easy to, look at an NFL quarterback, for example, or, in the case of soccer, or, football, depending on where you're from, a forward, and make a judgment that their skill's bad. In the case of the NFL, for example, like there was one time that a non-quarterback had to, with 1 week of practice, take the position of starting quarterback for their team, right? And he did really bad. And after that happened, a lot of people who had previously said a lot of stuff like, basically saying I could do better at NFL quarterback than a lot of these guys that are playing, a lot of them were like, yeah, I kind of regret saying that now because, seeing somebody, like that's clearly a really good athlete from the way they play. They're clearly a good athlete, but they're still really struggling to, throw the ball well and stuff like that. Makes it, you kind of look at that and go, well, maybe, it's a very different experience than I thought it was. And stuff like that, where, that judgment ended up being wrong about other people's abilities to do it and all that. So, like, I think there's a difference between doing that and make a judgment on, for example, what being an NFL quarterback would, mean and what you think about being an NFL quarterback in and of itself. Because, like, for example, you have to do that a lot with jobs and stuff. Like, do you want to do the job? Do you think it would be something you enjoy? And a lot of times you have to decide that without ever even, all that much looking into what the job entails and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that you have to decide based off of these kind of, sort of preconceived notions and, you know, unfull arguments and all that. So I think that ultimately there's a very large difference between doing that and making a judgment on somebody else's ability to do it. And I don't know, like part of the problem is this is the sort of thing that is very hard to actually find a right answer to, because it's the sort of thing that doesn't even really seem like it does have a particular correct answer. So who knows? Anyway, yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on it. It's difficult to say, because part of the thing is it's really easy to go, you know, oh, you should never make decisions off of preconceived notions and stuff like that. But ultimately in life, you have to from time to time. There's times that, you know, you have to make decisions off of preconceived notions and, you know, split moment decisions, stuff like that. So it makes it hard to have a one-size-fits-all answer to the question. And I think it's definitely different for, you know, stuff like sports that's skill-based compared to, I don't know, stuff that less so relies on skill. Once again, it's a hard question, and, you know, I kind of like to ask hard questions from time to myself and work through them, figure out what I think. A lot of times I find, though, that the conclusion I ultimately come to is I don't know, which is probably fine. It's better than, you know, very strongly bearing in on an answer and it being the incorrect answer. And I guess part of the deal is to, like, you know, for example, with questioning other people's abilities and stuff like that, is what is the purpose behind you doing it, right? Like, if you're a sports fan, for example, is the reason why you're questioning the ability because you're, you know, looking at what you think your team should do and how am I supposed to go from here? Whoops. Yeah, you're looking at what you think your team should do, and as a result, you're like, you know, I think blah 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 is a better cornerback than, you know, this guy, and stuff like that. Or are you just insulting someone for the sake of insulting without really much else behind it? I think I need to get to there. Yeah. That answer is actually kind of obvious. I'm kind of embarrassed it took that long. Because, like, there's... part of the thing is also, is are you judging off of an objective or subjective calculation? Like, you know, if you're saying that, you know, one person has much better stats than somebody else, then it can be backed up with actual statistics. That's also very different than just saying that, you know, I think that blah 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 is better because, I don't know, they just seem better. But then also, conversely, I don't think there's anything wrong with just, you know, making that judgment of, I think this person's probably better. You know, gut decisions and stuff like that. I think the problem comes in when you act like it's a subjective calculation that led to that conclusion rather than an objective calculation. Like, there's a big difference between saying that I think that somebody's better at something and saying that someone is better at something, right? I don't know. It's also interesting, like, tackling these questions, for example, considering the fact that I do them all in a parkour video. I kind of like it, though. I feel like kind of the weird style of, you know, more philosophical talk while doing parkour is kind of fun. I don't know how much, you know, people like it, but, you know, I've heard some people say that they actually really enjoy it, so I don't know. I enjoy making it. Some people enjoy watching it. Works out. I acted like that was a single ladder. I didn't even check to see if it would be a double ladder. I just kind of went without thinking. Whoops. But yeah. Yeah. And, you know, part of the deal also with, you know, subjective and objective things is it's like, then also to a degree, sometimes you have objective standards. Like, I'm going to continue to use the NFL example. I know I have a lot of viewers that come from other countries, so sometimes I don't like quite as much using the NFL as an example, but it's what I know best, so it's what I go with. But, like, you can have a cornerback that, you know, for example, averages a large amount of interceptions compared to other cornerbacks in the league. And then you might have another one that averages more deflections. And then you can have you can have one person that says that one cornerback's better because they get a lot of interceptions. And then you'll have somebody else that'll say another cornerback's better because they get a lot of deflections. And, you know, then some of it comes down to where you have the objective facts, like, you know, this cornerback got X number of interceptions in the last couple games, and this cornerback got X numbers of deflections, but which cornerback's better? And, you know, what would be the correct calculation for, you know, how many deflections do you need to have the equivalent of an interception? And then also it's like, you know, but then with the cornerback position, because you're covering a wide receiver, right? You also got to keep in mind how often does a quarterback throw it in their direction? Because you might have a cornerback that gives up, you know, 40% of the passes that come their way, and another one that gives up 50%. Those numbers aren't realistic or anything, I don't think, but, you know, just kind of as an example. So then you got 40% and 50%. And, you know, what if the one that gives up 50% of the ones that come in their direction also has less passes going in their direction because they play tighter coverage, and it less often looks like it would be possible for the pass to go their way. So then as a result, quarterbacks throw it their way less. How am I supposed to activate that? Oh, it went. So yeah, like there's so many different calculations, and it continues going up further. So many different calculations and stuff to make with it, and different assumptions that are made in many situations. And there's many situations where you have to make an assumption to come to an answer. So then, you know, there's those. But then later on, a lot of times you'll find out that one assumption was right and one was wrong and whatnot. And ultimately, you know, I feel like any of these questions ends up being, you know, more complex than you originally give them credit for. And sometimes it's a lot simpler. But then other times, like in the case of sports players, a lot of times you won't ever know what the correct answer was. Like if you're going to cut a player from the team and you have two players that you're considering cutting, and you choose one to cut and the other one you keep, and the one that you keep does mediocre, and the one that you cut doesn't end up back in the league and never plays professional sports again, it's hard. It'll be impossible to tell if you made the right decision. Yeah, I just need momentum from that. It is unpleasant. So, like, you know, then we can have debates over whether subjective or objective, or not subjective or objective, but which statistics should have been used to make the decision, and, you know, what factors and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, because you'll never truly know how the other one would have panned out, you can never truly tell which one would have been the right decision. Like, sometimes it's, you know, a bit obvious, but most of the time it's not. And there's some degrees of, even if you sign one player and cut the other, and the player that you cut goes off to another team and becomes a superstar, what about the possibility that part of the reason why they became a superstar was due to the coaching staff of the other team? And stuff like that. It's funny how all this started just because I was annoyed that some people were judging my parkour skills. But, like, that's part of what I do is, you know, I take something that happens that might be minor and, you know, find a way to start asking bigger, more complex questions off of it. Which I don't think is a bad thing per se. You know, I think it's good to, you know, ask questions and improve your knowledge. And some degree with intelligence and wisdom, the only way to improve it is to ask yourself questions. Sometimes you can't, you know, improve by taking somebody else's answer. So I don't know. Does it look like we're reaching the end of this map? I haven't talked all that much about the map, which I do feel kind of bad about. I'm not super worried about it, though, just because it's an older map. I typically find I'm less concerned about, you know, actually reviewing the map when it's a bit older. Just because, you know, not as many people are searching it out and stuff like that, and people who are watching the videos are more often watching it because they enjoy my content or whatever. It's a lot more often that, let me put it this way, it's a lot more often that it's returning viewers for content like this that's on an older map compared to new viewers, which is oftentimes the majority for maps that have just came out. So as a result, I'm more okay with focusing less on the map, since I already know that I'm going to have a viewer base for it that is less concerned about the map, if that makes sense. There's a roundabout, man. Oh, wait, no, it's not. What does that say? If you are stuck. No, I wanted to read the sign, so I came down. And now I have to restart that whole thing. No! I just wanted to read the sign. I should have been smart and just kept going. Mistakes have been made. No. I did so good on so many difficult jumps throughout that sequence, too. That's too bad. I have to remake this jump. But yeah. I was going to talk a little bit about the map, wasn't I? Yeah, like, I mean, I like it. I like the fact that the scenery kind of plays into it. It's kind of like you're parkouring across seasons. You know, it's supposed to give off that sort of feel, which I like. I feel like from summer or from... Is it from summer to winter or from fall to winter? Anyway, who cares? I think it's from summer to winter. like it's kind of a bit vague and, you know, kind of a concept that's right at that point where it's like, all right, it's a, you know, interesting concept, but it's maybe not super impressive or whatnot. But I like it. I don't know. This map felt like the right balance of checkpoints were a good distance apart to still give you some challenge, and the levels were, you know, a decent length with a decent difficulty, right at the point where you can get a challenge and you can also, you know, play it a bit more casually. Back to the lobby. I find it funny all these are still here, but there's no way to do it. I feel like they should put buttons. Like, same thing with the first one. I feel like they should put buttons on all of the command blocks after it's done. So then that way, if you want to replay a level, you can. But I'm pretty sure the levels are set up to kind of try and give a Mario type feel. So, I don't know, it kind of works. Anyway, guys, I would like to thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And I'll see you all in the next one. God bless. Bye-bye.